Have you ever done emotional eating? You're not alone. Hey, what's shaking bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci. I hope you're doing well. So I've just finished this challenge I've given myself of a sardine fast, and I was going back to multiple small meals a day with high fats and low protein, 90% of my calories coming from fat and 10% from protein. And I actually didn't get back to that until today. So I knew I was going into a weekend, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy this weekend. I stuck with carnivore, but I've been going through a lot of stress in the last little while, and it really amped up in the last week. Now, I've always been an emotional eater, and even on carnivore, I've done some emotional eating, but it's always been quite manageable. I didn't go off carnivore. I can't stress that enough. That's not even an option for me anymore. If I ever went off carnivore, I would be well over 500 pounds very quickly. What do I do when I emotionally eat? Well, I stick first and foremost to a carnivore diet. That's non-negotiable. When I was having difficulty becoming a consistent carnivore, then back then I would go off of a carnivore diet, and I was either on a carnivore diet or I was often off a carnivore diet. And I think there's a lot of people that struggle with that. And if that's you, I appreciate it. I know there's a lot of people who are struggling to do that. Sometimes it's something small that they're having in their diet consistently. Maybe it's diet pop, maybe it's something else, but it's something that they're struggling with. With me, it was ice cream or pizza typically. So I was just addicted to either of them, and I could go through a lot of ice cream in one sitting, or pizza. I could go through an extra large pizza on my own. Now, what do I eat when I do emotional eating? Well, it could be anything from my portion control to certain foods. I like cheese. Now, I haven't had cheese since January, and I probably won't have cheese again because I'm still trying to lose weight. And I was trying raw cheese at the time, and I was hoping it wouldn't have the same impact as regular cheese, but it did. I didn't even have a lot. I had a little bit each day, as well as raw milk, but it still had an impact on my weight, and I put on 10 pounds, and it didn't come off. So I went into this last challenge I did at 314 pounds from 304 pounds. Overall, I've been losing weight, or I've been plateauing, but I've never really put on weight. And this last challenge, I put on well over 45 pounds at least, but it's been coming off really fast. And I'm going back to the high fat version of carnivore that got me there. So this last weekend, I thought, you know what? I'm going to enjoy this weekend because I'm going back to high fat, low protein, but I've been exercising with weights. So my lean mass has been maintaining. I can tell by feeling it. If you do something like that without exercise, you will lose lean mass. I can promise you that. You need to do weight-bearing exercises if you're on a moderate to low protein diet. You should be doing weight-bearing exercises, even if it's your own body weight. You should be doing those weight-bearing exercises anyway. But especially if you're on a moderate to low protein diet, it's vital that you exercise so you don't lose your lean mass, because when you lose muscle mass, you're losing bone density with that, and you can't afford to do that. So this last weekend, I had some cold cuts. I had some Italian cold cuts. I had some mortadella. I had some salami. I like cold cuts. Typically, I'll have chicken wings. I'll cook them in an air fryer. There's something about the crispiness that I like when I'm having treat foods like that. So my treat foods have changed since I've been carnivore, strict carnivore. So it's important, if you're struggling with carnivore, that you find foods that become your new cheat foods. You can't just cut out all your old cheat foods and those habits all at once. That can be very difficult. It's hard enough trying to cut out sugar, and trying to cut out those habits can be difficult. I rarely give myself cheat days or treat days, and if I do, it's strict carnivore. But a long time ago, before I decided to be strict, I had to replace those junk foods with carnivore foods. Now, part of it happened organically. I just noticed whenever I was stressed, I was leaning towards things like chicken wings. It's the crispiness, I guess, as well as these cold cuts and cheese every now and then. But cheese is off my list of treat foods now. So it's one thing to try and stop that habit. It's another thing to work with that habit. I've been tackling a lot of different eating disorders doing carnivore. There was binge eating. There was foods that had sugar and carbs in them. There was the volume addiction. There was not chewing my food enough, not chewing my food properly. There was a host of different eating disorders that I was dealing with. But for the most part, carnivore seems to balance most of those. I'd rather see someone cheat on a carnivore diet, filling themselves up with steak, than having something off a carnivore diet if their goal was to be strict with the carnivore diet. What are your go-to foods? Have you ever struggled with emotional eating? Let me know in the comments. I think everyone can relate to this topic. So what can you do to manage your emotional eating? Well, first of all, if sticking to carnivore is an issue when you have emotional eating, stay full on what you're allowed to have. So if it means getting that food out of your house or maybe not ordering out, those are the important things you can do to yourself. And so you want to kind of stop that before you even get to that point. So you can't do anything about the emotional eating sometimes, but you can control what you put in your mouth and make sure it's something that you're allowed to have. When it comes to stress, you can't always get rid of your stress, but you have to manage it well. And so you have to keep in mind, if you're emotionally stressed, you need to do something maybe a little more aggressive, maybe something physically engaging to help combat that emotional stress. You don't want to do a hobby that is more mentally stressful. Now you're putting more stress upon yourself. So you want something that will help sedate you. You want something that's going to sedate you in the long run. And something like weight-bearing exercises are a good way to do that. If you need to keep a food diary, I know tracking can be a bit of an issue with people, but you want to make sure that you know what you're eating and what's going in your mouth, and also how much of it's going in your mouth if that's what you're dealing with. Having a hunger check or a reality check when you're emotionally eating doesn't always matter. You're already trying to give in to this dysfunctional way of eating, and it's one thing to try and stop it if you can, and that's your goal, is to not only not work with it, but to stop it. Maybe you need to stop and maybe write some things down and check to see if you're on course with where you want to go with your goals on a carnivore diet. And then after you have that written down, you have to ask yourself, is this really going to help me achieve my goals? And you might be able to talk your way out of this. If you can do that during something that's really emotional, I applaud you. Some people can, some people can't. Work with your strengths. Watch your weaknesses. Be aware of what your weaknesses are. So on top of taking away temptation, you want to fight boredom. And boredom can be your enemy, because often if you're overwhelmed with stress, maybe you're not doing too much. Maybe you're staying in bed a little longer. Maybe you get home from work and you just need to stop, sit, and not do anything. You sort of tune out from the world. If that's something you're doing, maybe you have to fight that. Maybe you have to fight to keep back in touch with the world. I don't really think social media counts, but if that's as far as you can go in the beginning, then go with that. But I wouldn't let that last longer than a day. And the most important thing I want you to walk away with is snack healthy, eat healthy. Even if you're going to binge healthy. And what I mean by healthy, if you're tuning into this, you're obviously interested in the carnivore diet. And if you're struggling with sticking to a carnivore diet, then make sure when you're emotionally eating, you're sticking to carnivore. I can't stress that enough. You can't always manage your stress that well, but you can choose what goes in your mouth. And it's easiest, and you're going to be proud of yourself if you get to the other side of that stress and you say to yourself, well, I didn't go off the carnivore diet this time. It's a huge win. That's a huge win. I don't want you to underplay how important that is. Stick with the carnivore diet. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching this. If you can, leave a comment and help build other people up in the comment section. I think there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with this. Thanks a lot and take care.